Hello, you beautiful people. My name is Gerker. I'm your first friend in Alaska. I'm also an associate real estate broker in South Central Alaska. And today we're going to be talking about what is going on in Anchorage, which is, no surprise, one of, if not the largest real estate market in the state, depending on how you look at it. Now, before we get started though, just wanted to make sure you know that it is required admission to see these videos, to give me a big thumbs up and a comment in the comment section down below, and that makes me feel really good down to the core of my mean prickly soul. Now, without further ado, let's go and jump into today's market update, looking first at the single family homes, the condos in the multifamily market. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is what's going on in single family, what is going on with the inventory that we have. Well, the inventory right now is sitting right at about 340 properties available on the market, which is up a little bit from the year before, because last year we had right around 327 homes on the market. So that's a bit of an increase in the right direction. I will take it. And also keep in mind, historically though, prior to COVID, we'd expect to see anywhere from about 840 up to about 960 properties available on the market. If we're looking at the month of June, which is the month where we have the most complete data up to this point. So that tells me that we are moving in the right direction. Still got a long way to go when it comes to the available inventory here on the market. Next thing we're going to look at is the number of properties that have actually sold in Anchorage for the month of June, which again is the month where we have the most complete data. This is not the channel where we forecast what's going to happen in the future. We talk about the data that's actually available. Anyway, we see that this time last year, we had about 180 properties sell, and this year it's about 206. So despite everything that's going on, despite people talking about tariffs, despite this scare and this is going to collapse, that's going to collapse, still people are wanting to buy properties more so than they did the year before. However, let's talk about what we were seeing as far as the number of properties selling on the market prior to COVID. So we see that normally prior to COVID, it'd be anywhere from about 280 up to about 300 properties that we're selling. So the fact that we're at 208 and considering the inventory is like a third of what it normally is, I'm going to take that actually as a really good sign that there's still a lot of demand for single family properties in Anchorage. All right, now for the big thing I know everyone actually tunes in for, and that is the average year-to-date sold price. We see that this time last year it was about $510,000, and this year it's about $523,000, which means we've seen about a 2.5% increase for the average sold price for single-family properties in Anchorage. Now, I know for a lot of people, this is incredibly frustrating because you're hearing from all these sources that the prices should be softening, they should be coming down. And they're looking online, they're seeing all these, all the updates they get on Zillow saying, oh, the price cut here, price cut there. So how the heck are we still seeing these increases for the average sold price? Well, we'll get to that in the summary, but just wanted to make sure you're aware that I see you and I probably know what you're thinking. So we'll talk about that in the summary. All right, let's talk condos now. Condos are great. They're 4 walls, you got a roof, all the good stuff. And it's also a more affordable way to live in a market where the cost of housing is going up and up and up. Condos provide you an opportunity where the cost is going to be significantly lower usually than what you're going to have if you're just in a single family home. So with that being said though, I'm sure a lot of people are interested in getting into condos. And unfortunately, in a time like this, if you're a condo owner, you also want to hold on to them really tight because that's your your affordable ticket. So what we see is that this time last year, there was about 80 condos available on the market, and this year there's about 106. Before we get too excited though, just want to point out that prior to COVID, we would normally see anywhere from about 400 to about 460 condos available on the market. That's right, we're seeing about 25% of the inventory that we normally do this time of year for condos. Now, for the longest time, if you had a condo in Anchorage, it was dang near impossible to get rid of it. And now, you can't find them because cost of living is going up with the housing, and people who were previously complaining they couldn't get rid of them are now holding on to these condos with a death grip because, that's more affordable. And that's ironic because, anyway, yeah, I'll move on from there. But yes, inventory is way low. That's the bottom line. All right, now again, let's take a look at the number of condos that have actually sold, and we see that this time last year there was 91, and this year it's 97. So let's take a look back and just see historically what's kind of par for the course, and we see that normally we'd see anywhere from about 90 to about 114 condos that have actually sold. So we do see that we're right within that range, even though the number of condos available is like 20 or 25% of what we normally see, and that's significant. It does show you there's a high demand for condos if we have about the same number of properties selling, even though the inventory is that low. Next thing we see is the average sold price for condos, not surprisingly, has gone up at a faster clip than what we've seen in the single family properties, because it went from about $278,000 this time last year to about $288,000 this year, which means we've actually seen a 3.5% increase for the average sold price. Not a huge surprise here. Honestly, if anything, I'm surprised it hasn't gone up by faster appreciation rate than what we're just seeing here at 3.5. I suspect if you actually break it out and look at the specific condos that are selling, you're probably seeing that there might actually be a higher appreciation rate, just anecdotally. Like, I've helped a number of people lately try to buy condos in Anchorage, and I can tell you, if it's in good shape and solid area, like you're gonna have a fist fight on the front lawn, essentially. It's pretty competitive at the moment, so I'm kind of surprised it's only gone up by 3.5%. But I think what you're seeing is probably a lot of those higher end condos are probably just not even coming onto the market. So this appreciation rate is happening in absence of, the normal higher priced condos that you would normally see. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind there. And we'll talk more about that in the summary, though. All right, before moving on and talking about the multifamily market, which I know is the thing that most of you are actually tuning in for, I'm sure, let's go ahead and just take a quick break here. For those of you who've been watching for a bit, you do know I have a relocation guide for those of you considering making a move up here to Alaska. If that's something that would benefit you, do feel free to reach out to my website. Make sure you register, and make sure in the little comment section you put relocation guide and maybe just something about yourself, and I'll make sure to send that relocation guide over to you and reach out and see if you have any specific questions for me. That is right, I actually do reach out, and we can talk a little bit and see what questions you have. The relocation guide is usually some very general information, so the conversation is a little bit more tailor-made to whatever questions and situation you have. Also, if you are going to be up here in Alaska in the near future, or you currently are here, we do have a monthly meetup for people who've recently moved up here, and it's just a great opportunity for us to get out and kind of enjoy the state, go on some adventures, paddleboarding down rivers, going and hiking up to glaciers, taking photos at the Nature Center and Eagle River. There's just all sorts of things we do, and it's just an opportunity for us to get out and kind of visit and get to know people a little bit better. So if that's something you'd like to do, go check that out in the Facebook group down below, and we'd love to see you. Now, let's go ahead and finish this up to date looking at the multifamily market. If you've been wanting to buy some investment properties in Anchorage for a while, and you've been looking specifically at the multifamily, you've kind of noticed that there hasn't been a whole lot of inventory, and unfortunately this is the month where all that is not going to change. Okay, so it went from 80 multifamily properties available this time last year to 78 this year. So this is the only asset class we have where the number of available inventory has actually gone backwards a little bit. Normally around this time of year prior to COVID, we would see anywhere from about 200 up to about 200 properties available, which means that, we're still like a third of what we normally are. So that's probably just not going to change anytime soon, because a lot of these landlords were able to purchase properties back in 2020, 2021, when the interest rates were, hovering right around 2.5–3%. And that does a lot of good things to the bottom line to an investment property. So you're probably not going to see a big surge of inventory anytime soon in Anchorage. Now, looking at the number of multifamily properties that have actually sold, we see that this time last year there were 22 multifamily properties that sold, and this year there are 30. Now, looking historically, again, prior to COVID, we see that you would normally sell anywhere from about 26 up to about 35. So we see we're actually right there within that range, even though the inventory is so low, meaning the demand for multifamily properties is still pretty high. All right. Now, the average sold price for multifamily properties went from about approximately $587,000 to about $612,000 this year, which means the average sold price went up by about 4.2%. Now, that's good news if you're a property owner of a multifamily property. That's all good. And also keep in mind, multifamily includes everything from the little duplex all the way up to like the 50 unit commercial property where you're absolute slumlord. I mean, it really does include everything. And so, yes, it is going up. I don't know how much I lean on this specific data. Now, what's interesting about this is we see that 3 years back, the average sold price was about $501, and now it's $612,000. So that's interesting to me because we see this big jump on the next year, but then it didn't go back. It actually increased slightly year over year. So that's interesting to me. I don't know if that means we're just having more of these larger commercial properties selling now that there's fewer of like the little duplexes selling. Maybe you have more of these larger commercial properties selling. I couldn't say for sure. If you have any insights on that, do feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts and experiences are on the ground. Now, for the quick summary here, all in all, I would say that the market is still, for the most part, more of a seller's market than a buyer's market. Now, I'm not willing to just say it's a seller's market and just ask for whatever you want and, just tell all the buyers they can deal with it and blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying, okay? If you make sure your property is in good condition, we take solid pictures, and we do the entire process and dot the I's, cross the T's and all that, there's no reason to think that we're going to struggle to get the property sold. But also, this isn't just a complete gravity-free, reality-free kind of environment for sellers like what it was back in 2021, because that was absolutely insane, and I don't think any of us, except some sellers, want to go back to that market. I'll say that lately, if I look on the search engines and I see a property, we're looking with a buyer, and I see something that is priced to where it needs to be, I feel a part of myself die on the inside, honestly, because that means we're probably going to have to fight pretty hard. Now, if you're a buyer, this sounds pretty discouraging, and I do understand that. And also, take courage, take heart, I guess, because you don't really want to buy an asset that is depreciating in value. Everybody thinks, hey, we're just going to buy like the bottom of the market, and then it's going to, only go up for us afterwards, and that's how it's going to go. Every market's going to see its ups and it's going to see its downs, but there are some markets where it just goes up really slowly and it might come down really slowly, and it doesn't have these huge, like, just yo-yo markets where everything is just constantly boom and bust. I would personally prefer a market like that because it means my asset is slowly going up, and if it starts going down, I can make the decision. Am I just going to, am I in a position or I can hang on to this in the long haul and it's going to work its way out, or do I need to make a decision quickly and get out from under this? So you're going to spend more time on the other side as a seller, just watching it go up, than you're going as a buyer sitting there and feeling hopeless and watching it go up as well in dismay. The big thing is just making sure that we are being intentional about what it is that you're looking for. Now, if you're a seller, kind of the same thing. It's not the market we had back in 2020 or 2021. We're going to have to make sure that we're actually doing a lot of that marketing. We're going to have to make sure that we are pricing it correctly, which that is the big thing. You can't just put it on there for, lazily $100,000 more than what your neighbor got for their property a year ago and expect good results. I'm seeing properties that do not sell on this market still, even with all the demand that's out there. So I think some buyers have had enough of some of y'all's sellers' shenanigans. If you're an investor, same thing I always say, just make sure your numbers actually do balance out. Make sure you're budgeting enough so when inevitably things break down, you can fix it so your tenants aren't having to suffer because you didn't think ahead. All right. This has been my market update. I have talked a lot, so thank you very much for watching. If you have any real estate questions, reach out to me. Let's talk, and let's see if I can help you. Talk with you later. I guess bye.